Ivan, or the host of Keep It Moving, new video podcast show. And I'm excited today about my guest, Andrada Anitei from Romania. And I met Andrada via LinkedIn. I think she has a good story, but I also am very inspired by some of the initiatives that she's taken and to really try to impact the world in a better way. So say hello, Andrada, to our viewers.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be invited in Ivan's show. Thank you, Ivan, for this opportunity.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So I want to jump right in and talk about the value revolution. Am I saying it correct?
It's vulnerability.
Vulnerability. Okay. And what exactly is vulnerability?
Vulnerability has been thought of as a concept in which we're trying to understand how people think about vulnerability. Mm-hmm. What was their experience with vulnerability, and if there's a success story behind it. I mean, there may be people that went through this stage, and managed to successfully get over it. Or on the other hand, that may be people that are still confronting with it and are looking for a solution, for a resolution. So with this, let's try to call it campaign. We're trying to provide a lending help, to lend a helping hand, to people who may need an advice on this topic.
And I find that I was fortunate, and I kind of said this in our other show earlier, to be able to start the initiative. And
thank you very much for that. Your answers were awesome.
I'm a very transparent person, and I believe, much like yourself, that I want to make a positive impact on this world. And I know part of the way for me to do that is to be open and to be transparent. And within that transparency, actually, the word vulnerability, is kind of attached to it. Why is vulnerability so important to you, and what it is that you're trying to achieve through vulnerability?
Vulnerability is a really important aspect to me because I've dealt with it for such a long time. I mean, my failed marriage took me a long way through it. I've been vulnerable as in, I wasn't being actively listened to. I was trying not to hurt the other person, but I was actually hurting myself. Trying not to hurt my kids, but they were continuously being hurt by both of us, both me and my partner. Just not physically, as in mentally, because of the atmosphere that was in the house, right? Mm-hmm. So, on the other hand, I do believe that, such as yourself, transparency is one of the best things that people can do, right? Because, we just need to think about ourselves as being human before anything else. I mean, I treat a CEO the same way that I treat a janitor. Right. I think that's the best example that I can give. So, transparency, I think that brings up the best in you. Right?
Yeah, I'm big on transparency. That's one of the things I've identified as one of my core values is transparency, and it's something that I look for in other people. And another word I think is, and I've heard you mention this before, and in other places, is the mask. What does that mean to you? A mask. What is that?
Actually, mask is also the name of my first ever published article on my blog.
Okay.
Why mask? Because I hate the fake. And to me, mask means being fake. And I said there in that the article that as a woman takes off her makeup in the evening, right? I think that we should all take off our prejudice and just look beyond that and try to understand why people do that and see where are the issues with today's society. For instance, I'm not going for all doctrines. I'm guiding myself. Okay, we have some guiding ideas, right? Some guidelines.
Right.
Still, I believe that we can construct our own perception, but we need to engage self-thinking, not taking for good what others think about what surrounds us.
Right. That's one of the things I started installing into my kids. You know, I've always pushed education, and I do think education is important, obviously. And education was beat upside my head when I was growing up. You know, you got to go to college, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to, get a good job and all these things. And one of the things I've actually shifted with my kids, now I tell them they still need to have an education, but to also be self-educated. There's a difference from having an education and being educated. Educated, in my opinion, is where you start teaching yourself. What are some of the things that you teach your daughters about vulnerability and listening to yourself, trusting your voice?
Well, I'll tell you a short story about that. My elder girl has issues with not succeeding to achieve a result from the first take. So in this extent, I'm trying to make her understand that it's not important how many times you're trying to do a thing, to achieve something, as long as you don't give up. And I'm trying to show her, take a minor example and show her that I've tried at least 5 or 10 times until I achieved that. I think that's the first lesson. Just keep on trying, never give up. If you give up, you're lost from the beginning, right? The other one wants to be first. The youngest one always wants to be first. Okay, I can relate to the fact that this is, this strongly relates to being jealous to the other one. So I'm trying to make them understand that jealousy is no good. And it doesn't matter who's the first, right? As soon as we're humans to the others, it doesn't really matter if I'm the first and I have the biggest car, or you're the first and you have the biggest house. These are 2 principles that I'm trying to teach my girls, even though the young one is 4 and the other one, the elder one, is 5 years old. But I think that core values should be taught from early age.
So what do you mean then by it doesn't matter who's first? What is your message behind that?
Treat everyone equally. Be human. And people will always try to help you get where you want.
Right. I'm impressed with your level of wisdom and maturity. And maturity is probably not the right word, but your level of wisdom, but also your willingness to be open and obviously very, I would suspect that you're very much a thinker.
Yeah, I am. I used to be, sorry for interrupting, I used to be an overthinker, which is not good at all. I mean, it's okay to think about things in detail until some point. If that thing occupies your mind more than, say, more than half an hour, that's overthinking, right? And overthinking is slowly killing us because we're taking in consideration things that may never be there. We're making assumptions, which most of the times may be wrong. We might take risks that do not exist.
So what are some of the things you do then to help you not overthink? Because I think a lot of viewers, everybody has a tendency to start living in their head a little bit. So what are some of the tools or steps that you could offer our viewers to help them kind of get out of their head a little bit?
Breathe and get in touch with nature. I mean, nature is a real cure to me. I don't get too much time to be there, but each evening I've made this habit that each evening I'm taking the road home by foot. I walk right from the subway to home, which are 15 minutes walk, let's say 15 to 20 minutes walk.
Okay.
But I do it every evening regardless of the weather outside, regardless of what people think. And I always have headsets, music. Music is what saved my life.
Really?
Always. Yeah, I'm a music addict.
What do you find then by being in touch with nature? What is it? What does that do for you?
It loosens up my mind. I mean, during this stroll of mine, this walk of each evening, I'm trying to stop at least 1 minute, right? And I'm trying to find a place where I can breathe. I take in oxygen, clear oxygen, as in, in a city is kind of important to find such a spot. It's
Right.
kind of impossible, but we're trying to find them. So just sitting down, right, with my music on and maybe look at the skies, for instance, or just admire a flower, or take a gaze at a tree, at a blossom tree, right? At a flowering tree, I'm sorry. If you take this 1 minute of relaxation, let's say, it's some kind of, it's oxygen infusion actually. And thoughts get the chance to put a distance between them for a second.
Obviously I've had the chance to interact with you prior to this, and I just keep hearing certain things, and I haven't really asked a question, but I'm gonna ask the question. What do you feel your life purpose is?
If I could, I would live out of writing. That's what I would do for the rest of my life. Write and help people and interact. Right. Yeah, interaction. Because, I think writing drives interaction. Right? Because if you publish something, for instance, an article on the blog, most probably you will get a feedback. Out of that feedback, if you keep it going, you can construct something. People may get to trust your point of view. And if you get to build a bit of trust, you can even go beyond that. For instance, we talked on LinkedIn, right?
Right.
And afterwards, we chose to interact outside LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. So I think this is why I want to go for writing, because I can interact more with people. And I love people. And people are beautiful, but they don't know it.
Absolutely. What are some of your favorite topics to write about?
my most important tag on my blog is human behavior. So I observe. Most of the time I observe. I have times when I do not speak at all. I just listen, observe, and try to understand why a certain person does that. Right? To give you an example, I came across a post I didn't agree with on LinkedIn one day, which one person was being mocked. But I chose to not let that affect me. You know, I observed. I saw the persons that made the comments, right? If you see something like that, you know how to approach those people in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So, you see?
It's funny because I actually had a client that I was working with, and that very same concept came up. You know, they were dealing with a new supervisor or whatever, and some things took place that really didn't sit well with my client. And now from that point forward, they knew how to deal with this new supervisor. You know, the new person revealed part of their character. And,
right.
And, you know, so when that takes place, now you know how to interact with people. And that's a big thing about social media too. How do you discipline yourself then to not engage in trolling?
Well, I've come to the conclusion that trolling spends too much of my energy. So, if, for instance, trolling would have something to do with plagiarism, right? With duplicating content.
Okay.
Or stealing content. Actually, that's it, stealing content of someone else, right? If it deals with that, I'm going to stand up. I did it. And I will do it again. Because I think that's actually a life principle. It's not just trolling on social media, it's stealing, regardless that you're stealing a piece of bread or you're stealing someone else's thoughts and work. A theft is still a theft. Right. And I will not let that go. But with trolls, usually, well, I don't actually came so much across to trolls, but as I said before, I've seen situations. I know people that have come across to trolls, but I did advise them to not spend their energy on it. It's not worth it. I mean, that those people are there especially to draw attention to themselves, and they're actually attention to their own character, not yours.
Right.
And you don't want to alter your character by responding that.
Yeah. And I think sometimes that's very hard, especially when it happens to you, but then also when there's an exchange of opinions that are very different from one's own. I want to circle back to your writing.
Yeah.
What is, and I know what I want to ask, but I just don't know how to really phrase it. Explain to me then, when do you write and what happens when you start writing?
Wow. That's a funny question because I write everywhere, literally everywhere. So I started writing a book last summer. I still didn't manage to finish it, but let's say 60% of it was written in the subway, during my evening walk, in my work breaks, and in the morning, during my morning coffee. So these are the only moments I have the time for writing.
So I know you want to become I know you want writing to be your life from a financial perspective, right? To be able to gain financial independence through your writing. What are some of the challenges you faced in that endeavor?
Time.
What do you mean?
Well, I do have side hustles, as people call them. After I get home from work and feed my kids, and while I'm trying to catch my breath, I'm doing side gigs. Let's say there's a person that I met on LinkedIn, actually, for which I created a blog, and I'm editing the text for it. But I'm doing that on weekends and after works, after hours, right, when I get home. So this is the most difficult challenge I do face. It's time, because dealing with 2 young kids and a 9-to-5 job and a house to maintain, right? So this is the greatest challenge, time. But I always had nights when I woke up and wrote. There's this only one poem I had, which was written at 3 a.m. in the morning, actually.
Really?
So, yeah.
You want to share the poem?
Sorry?
I said, do you want to share the poem?
I would rather direct our listeners to search for it on my blog. It's called Let's. That's easy.
Okay.
And it's the only poem in there.
Okay. And by the way, everybody, her blog is www.takenofake@.wordpress.com. And if you heard her mention earlier about the mask and her discussing that she don't like fake, she want real people, then I think the name of her blog pretty much reinforces that. I want to wrap it up just a little bit, right? Because I want to, taking a lot of your time anyway, and I appreciate you, being on the show.
That's okay.
What do you want to leave the listeners with? What would you tell our listeners to give them? What words of encouragement or inspiration would you offer?
First of all, you need to understand off your mask is a sign of strength, not weakness. I mean, being true to the other people, and first of all to your own self, it's the best first step that you can ever take, because you will learn on your own self. You will learn to look for the strength that's within you, and when you find the strength, there will be nothing holding you back to take the next step. So just lay off your mask. Take out of the advice that you receive every day, just take that one bit that you consider to be useful to you. Mm-hmm. Don't take everything for granted. Just think for yourself. Filter each information you get, all the opinions, because most of the time people will just give you an opinion just to give it, right, for the sake of it, right? Yeah. So filtering the information advice. Plus, try to walk a bit, listen to the music, because music is the best cure ever. And I will put them like this: music, and afterwards is writing. And whenever you face a challenge in your life, try writing it. So the joint of music and writing, to me, made wonders.
I could relate to that, because part of my language or expression of love is music. That's just an extension of my thoughts and feelings. Writing, I actually like writing, and some writing is for the public and some is just for me. Just get some crazy shit out of my head so I don't explode.
still helps you on a personal level, right?
Yeah.
Even if you don't publish it. I do have tons of text that I didn't publish ever, and I will never. But it helped me release that tension within my body and my brain at that specific moment.
Now, what are some other blogs so far? Have you been a guest on any other people's blogs?
Yeah, I was. There was actually recently, last week actually. It's called AF, but let me please look for that. Can I message you after that with the exact name? I wouldn't like to misspell it, right? Yeah, and that was what left me a very good impression of the man running it, because I asked him, okay, and what topic would you like me to write about? And he said, whatever you want. I do believe in the freedom of speech. Okay. And that's what impressed me, and that's what actually I think that drove me to finally write the article. And by the way, the article I wrote was the announcement for Vulnerable Revolution.
Oh, really?
On his blog. And he did, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think I mentioned it, that I had the opportunity to be a guest on that. And I think very powerful questions. And I know my mind state going into it was, I'm going to be open. I'm going to be honest about the questions. I don't want to give any of the questions away. But, about vulnerability and the lessons that I've learned from vulnerability. And I like the fact that you believe in being, true to oneself or true to yourself and filtering information and identifying what is true versus what is your truth. So I just want to wrap it up real quick because I don't want to take any more of your time, and I appreciate you being on the show. I think you're a remarkable person, right. A remarkable woman and mother, and I think you have a very, very bright future ahead of you. And hopefully, this part will, spread your message even more and continue to do the things that you're doing to help others and help the world. And so with that being said, hey, this is me, your boy Ivan Hunt, host of Keep It Moving Talk Radio, or actually now it's the video podcast. And I just want to tell everybody, be true to you. Being true to you is learning how to speak your truth. Within learning how to speak your truth, you can be tactful. You don't have to be condescending to anybody or malicious and foul to anybody by speaking your truth. Speaking your truth is simply the concept of speaking your thoughts, speaking your feelings, speaking your emotions, your opinions and judgments about certain topics or situations. It's about standing up for yourself. It's about identifying your strengths and weaknesses. Speaking your truth is the pathway to happiness. And I think forgiveness is the key to happiness. But speaking your truth is the path to staying happy. And you don't have to curse people out just because they make you mad. You can sit there and say, okay, look, I'm getting upset. Let me take a break. I'll come back to you and we'll finish this conversation. And that's speaking your truth, because now you've understood that, you learned how to self-control your emotions and your thoughts. So that's kind of my closing comments. And I'm super excited to have Andrada here on the show today. I think she's going to do big things, and it's going to happen a lot sooner than later. So that said, Ivan Hunt, host of Keep It Moving. Peace.